if I like you, you like me if I like you, you like me if I like you, yeah. If I like you, if I like you, you like me if I like you, you like me, why don't we?
Hello, and welcome to Not Another Couples Podcast. I think that's what we're calling this. That's what we've decided on for now. A new flagship podcast where we try new things together and see how they go. In a perfectly wholesome, family-friendly way, just saying. My name is Casey. You can't have my last name. I go on the internet a lot as the adjunct GM, where I stream on Twitch and do YouTube stuff. And I do a couple other podcasts with some friends. And we're doing a new show today. I'm here with my wonderful wife, Megan. Hello, who also streams on, I guess it's our Twitch channel at this point.
It's still yours, I think. I'm just a guest.
I don't know. You game on it a lot, though. I feel like it's our channel. I'm going to say it's our channel. I'm going to just go ahead and make that happen. But yeah, we're here. I'm Casey, the adjunct GM, and I'm here with Megan, who's going to be my partner and co-host for this podcast as well as life. And
I would hope so.
And the basic idea of this show, just to kind of, let's start with, what the show is, or let's even back up a little further. You've introduced yourself on Twitch. Tell us who you are now. Again, I think let's keep leaving last names out, but tell us who Megan is.
Well, like he said, I'm the wife, but I actually hate that movie. But I'm Megan. This is kind of only my second foray into going into podcasting and recording like this. I've been on my husband's Twitch several times. I've been a gamer for a while. I have a day job. But we have had this conversation so many times about a lot of things that I didn't get to experience growing up. It's going to be mostly the things that I didn't get to do until after we were married or after we met. There's going to be occasionally things that Casey didn't get to experience until after we met. But to sum it up a little bit as best as I can, I came from a family where my dad worked a blue-collar 9-to-5 job, still does, and has since the day I was born. My mom worked at a bank for a while, but then she became a stay-at-home mother around the time I think I was about 4 years old. My brother always off and on some kind of ball field his entire life. And then I grew up as somebody who was in the dance studio 6 days a week.
I was about to say, we've been using the term sheltered to talk about this, but let's be honest, part of it is just you were a hyper dedicated kid as far as dance goes and just skipped a lot of other things to dedicate more time to dance.
Well, I mean, part of it too is my dad worked a lot, and yes, my mom was a stay-at-home mother. She was very busy with a lot of her time, not only taking care of me and my brother and shipping us all over Timbuktu, really just the southern part of town, because that's where everything was except for ball tournaments. But she also was taking care of her mother, my grandmother, for majority of my life as well, because she lived by herself when my grandfather died. And that was taking up a lot of my mother's time. So I will go ahead and say anything that we talk about, it's going to probably come across as bad. Like, your parents didn't do this or let you watch this growing up. It's because we were constantly busy.
Yeah. And I want to be very clear. I get along well with my in-laws. We're going to keep it that way. We're not in-law bashing here. And also, we are very pro blue collar. I know you used that term. I am the grandson of a union carpenter who is now a college professor who has told students when they I don't like college, I hate this and want to go be a mechanic. I'm like, go do you. Go live. But no, we're going to be very positive about all those kinds of things. And this isn't, that's why I was like, I was literally just now thinking about it. We've been talking about, like, we even talked about Sheltered as a title for this podcast. And I'm wondering if that has negative connotations that I don't necessarily want to bring to it.
It does, but there is some grain of truth to that as well. Not only was I a busy kid, but my mother also, I got this from her, is a very naive person. And I am as well. Okay, I see the look across you guys can't see this on the podcast, but it's true. And I will be the first to admit I am a very naive person. I grew up that way. There's a lot my parents kept from me about the world, and I didn't catch on regrettably until I graduated high school, and I learned the hard way and many times embarrassing ways.
I would refute this if I thought your parents could figure out how to listen to it.
No, probably not.
That'll be all right. We have to show them how to email sometimes. What's a good example of, like, both of our parents have a certain level of technological naivete? For your parents, it's probably being asked to burn CDs for them that they can use for church.
My mother is a singer for the church. She's recorded her own music before. Like,
former Miss Tennessee finalist and such, by the way. Incredibly talented.
Not finalist, but she was a Miss Tennessee contestant. She was Miss Jackson State.
And in a Stevie Nicks cover band.
Yes, she was. She was in a Stevie Nicks cover band, which I didn't know about until I got into college. She didn't tell me that. So there is, like I said, some grain of truth to the word sheltered here.
And I guess you've talked about your childhood. Let's be fair. I'll give a little bit of mine. Same. My parents were both worked all through the time I was growing up. My dad working for a contractor with TVA, a highly regarded safety man for TVA, worked at steam and nuclear plants all my time growing up. That kept him on the road a lot. And my mom worked in customer service, essentially. I none of that to say anything bad about my parents, but they did, like, we had a lot of good friends and a lot of close people in the community. So my brother and I got to kind of do what we liked as long as we didn't go too crazy. So I got to go out, and I was in a band in high school and would spend nights out going to shows in the like middle part of our state, which is Tennessee. Spent a lot of time in Nashville, spent a lot of time out with friends. My parents even let us, at one point, we had an old barn behind the house that we hooked up some heaters in and built a stage and would host concerts. We made basically our own little music venue called The Shed, and would charge like $5 cover for people to come see, like, the 5 or 6 bands that we either knew or were part of. But I was always a big movie buff. I spent a lot of time at the movies. So there's not many movies I haven't seen.
And, apart, at least with me, apart from Disney movies, I was not a movie buff. And I think another difference here between you and me is, at least with my brother and I, we chose what we wanted to dedicate our lives to very, very early on. We chose practically before we turned 10 years old. You got to experience a lot of different things.
Oh, not just got to. The ADD wouldn't let me pick a thing. I say that jokingly. I did theater from the time I was in middle school till the time I finished college, and wish I had time now. I have a degree in theater. And you have a degree in dance education. That's how we met. And we'll talk about that at some point on this show as well.
'Cause that's another story about some first
yeah
things. Yes.
But no, so I did theater all throughout that time, and that's probably a good through line. But, like, I've always loved anything involving performing. That's why I love music and movies so much. I'm a huge nerd. I love video games. I love comic books. Lord of the Rings is my favorite story ever written. I've read The Hobbit more than 24 times probably at this point. And I'll probably talk about The Hobbit and Star Wars a lot. But that's kind of just the difference of where we're coming from, where I had my parents were like, here's an old pickup truck. And my friends were like, let's see how many of us we can fit in this to go to Nashville. And yeah.
Well, circling back to a question you had earlier about, like, our parents' different technological problems, you mentioned my parents about burning CDs or how behind they are on the times and using technology. Your mother, she screenshots everything on her phone.
It's so funny to me. Whenever I'm like, send me the link to that thing you're looking at, she'll screenshot whatever page it is and send it. Or there's been times where like she has her computer out and is looking at something and not knowing how to share it, she'll take a picture with her phone and text that. So take a picture of her laptop screen.
And then it's just this grainy photo that none of us can tell what the picture is in the first place.
Yeah, it's all right. Mom, if you're listening to this, this is your cue to call me and I'll show you how to send links.
We love you, Mom.
Yeah. She's babysitting our son right now. While we do this, that's the other part of this. This is the podcast we do when our son is either asleep or at his grandparents' house.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about our son a lot. We're not going to give his name. We might say Bubba or Kiddo, but we're very clear on. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to like use gendered pronouns with our child on air, but
that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay. But we did decide to settle on like we're not going to give out his name until he's old enough to be cool with that and know what that means. We don't share pictures of him outside of like private Facebook accounts and things like that. But
we both have seen a lot of what happens when kids are overshared on the internet, but also not to mention both of our day jobs involve some type of, internet safety awareness. And we're very aware of the other dangers that can happen from oversharing on the internet. So we're just being extra cautious.
Yeah, I suppose mentioning, I know we need to get into the topic, but talking about some background is helpful. If you've seen me on Twitch or another podcast, I'm an English professor, an adjunct, which is where my Twitch handle comes from, which adjunct is just a fancy word for part-time. On top of that, I spent 3 years working as a local journalist. So very, Clark Kent, if I'm giving myself credit, probably more Iris West. I did a lot of government stuff. But nowadays I work for the government in communications, local government with our city. I know I've let it slip several times what city that is, and I've given you one close by, but just for the sake of it, if you've got my first name and near Nashville and you want to cross-reference that, more power to you, but I'm going to try to be a little safe and not say what city I work for.
And I mean, there's going to be some listeners on here that know who we are personally, but yeah. So, yeah.
Otherwise, I'm an amateur entertainer. I do stuff like this and occasionally stream or post like tabletop RPG live plays.
On the opposite end of that, you could almost call me a professional entertainer of sorts. Yeah. I actually, for 11 years, have been a dance teacher for a while, and I have owned my own program exclusive for military kids for the past, I think, 4 years now. Mm-hmm. We're partway through year 4. But, for a while I floated around from one dance studio to another. I danced up until the time I graduated college and then transitioned into a teacher. I danced from 3 years old all the way up to, I think, age 24, because that's when we got married and I stopped and went teaching full time. And then, we moved, we had one job change to another. We moved again and again. And I just couldn't find the right place for me. And then I got the offer to be a part of this program that I now run. And it's been a big blessing for so many reasons. And it's exclusive to military kids just because of the area we're in. It's a very big military town, at least. But
I just had a really good idea for an episode of a first that we experienced together, which was buying a house. And I only want to talk about that so we can talk about the fact that we lived in a house, in a cabin that was built during the Civil War prior to buying a house.
Yes, we got to talk about our different, all the different houses we lived in, because there was something going on with each and every. I am convinced to this day that old log cabin was haunted. You cannot tell me otherwise. It
had headless statues in the front yard made by the builder of that cabin, who we rented from his great-great-great-grandson. We'll talk about this more later.
That's a story for another day. Yeah.
That's our Halloween episode. That's our Halloween episode. We've been trying to figure out what we do for Halloween. That's it. Oh, man.
Oh, now he's on fire.
Yeah, I'm here now. I'm alive. So let's get into the thing we were going to talk about today, which in this first episode, I mentioned that I consider myself a little bit of a cinephile. I do love movies. In particular, I have a love of animation, which, Megan, you share, though yours is a little more focused on Disney, whereas I like more on the like anime side of things. Not that you don't also love anime.
Yeah, I grew up with the classics. I was the standard Disney kid growing up in the early 90s. I experienced the Disney Renaissance in the middle of it. So I was hardcore into it, and I still am, but definitely not as much as I was as a kid. I don't think I really got into anime itself until I actually
wondered about this.
Well, it started when Cartoon Network first started airing Sailor Moon.
So you're an Adult Swim kid.
Sort of. I mean, I think it was right before Adult Swim became a thing because they started airing it during regular daytime hours for Sailor Moon. And I would catch it just before, or I would catch it just after I came home from school. And then after that, Toonami became a thing. And then I started getting into Dragon Ball Z. And, oh gosh, what were other ones? I watched Gundam Wing. And those were like the first, I think, 3 animes that I was introduced to. And then I found my first hardcore anime like I fell in love with, which was Yu-Gi-Oh!
Can that be called a hardcore anime?
What I mean hardcore, what I mean by that is I fell in love with it hardcore. But I will preface, it's only the original. I tried to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! GX after the original show wrapped up, but I got through season 1 and I'm like, it's just not the same. They started adding extra rules and I'm like, nah.
So I liked that. I liked GX. I liked card game Harry Potter, but yeah, I agree. The first series was better and really was its best in the Battle City arc. But
what was your gateway anime?
Dragon Ball. Definitely Dragon Ball.
Okay, so you watched Dragon Ball. I didn't get exposed to Dragon Ball until it was Z with when they did the Frieza arc, the Planet Namek arc.
I caught Dragon Ball I caught the end of Dragon Ball very young, and then like I don't remember even where, but like it was this cool thing, and then Dragon Ball Z did come on Adult Swim, and from that fight with Raditz, I was hooked. On top of that, probably other animes that really were like gateway entries to me. I only remembered the title of it a handful of years ago, but I remember seeing Tenchi Muyo.
Oh, Tenchi Muyo. I forgot about that.
Zatch Bell. G Gundam. G Gundam is a dear favorite. I know Gundam Wing is better than G Gundam in a way, but G Gundam is Dragon Ball Gundam. It is like martial artists, and Domon Kashu, yes, he has a Gundam, but he also punches a mountain in half with his bare fists. And just this hand of mine is burning red. It's so good. It's just so good. And the cheesy love story. And I skipped Inuyasha. I know that's one that a lot of people...
I skipped it too. Because keep in mind, y'all, when we were starting to watch anime, this was well before you could catch any of it online, even pirate versions of it.
That mess was on Adult Swim the whole time.
You had to be lucky.
It felt like a rom-com to me.
You had to be lucky to catch it in order, though, because in Toonami, they would air episodes of Inuyasha out of order.
Sure.
And I did not get into Inuyasha for that reason because I just could not follow the story.
There's one I'm trying to remember right now that Zoids. I loved Zoids. That's an American show though. It's not actually anime. But there's this one, and it's probably also American. I loved Monster Rancher. I'll throw that one out real quick. No, I'm a liar. Yes, I loved Dragon Ball, but that's not where my love of anime started.
Oh?
It started with Pokemon.
Oh, duh. Right.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Pokemon and Digimon. Anything that had a bunch of cool little dudes. that you could catch and be friends with.
So you started with the typical boy gateway anime. I started with the typical girl gateway anime.
Yeah. I started with Pokemon, but honestly, at the beginning, nowadays I look back and Pokemon is just this beloved franchise to me that I've played all the games and seen all the shows. But Digimon was like its cool, older, edgy brother at first.
And Pokemon is going to be another episode for sure, because I didn't get into Pokemon until like maybe almost a year ago. And now our son is getting into it. So that's going to be another episode entirely.
We are 20 minutes in and have not talked about Studio Ghibli.
Let's talk about Studio Ghibli. To start first.
That's the way, if you don't know me, no, we're going to go off on tangents. The idea of what the episode is about is a vague concept.
Yeah, most of the time it's just us talking. But anyways, so Studio Ghibli. I really didn't know what Studio Ghibli was even after I saw my first Studio Ghibli movie, which, like most people, was Spirited Away. But I can't recall when I saw it, but I know I was definitely out of my teen years by the time I saw Spirited Away. And by that point, anime had really started popping up. I mean, we can't talk about Studio Ghibli movies without acknowledging that Spirited Away opened the door for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Disney getting the distro rights for the US, it exploded.
But then since then, I didn't really watch a terrible amount of Studio Ghibli movies until, obviously, the premise of this podcast, until after we got married.
Yeah, she told me she hadn't seen many of, and I love Studio Ghibli. I think Kiki's Delivery Service was the first one I saw.
I did see that one because they constantly played it in commercials for trying to sell the VHS tapes of it.
And in my case, it's because I saw it at Hastings and the cover looked cool. And I had a cat named Gigi. So I...
Rest in peace, Hastings.
Yeah. Not rest in peace, Gigi. She's 15.
Oh, yes. That cat is still going. Somehow.
I actually had Gigi. We had Gigi after I saw that movie. But still, it's cool in retrospect.
And then...
But I remember I also didn't get into Ghibli movies right away for whatever reason. I think I probably saw Spirited Away at some point. But I remember I wanted my cousin... who her parents weren't into, were very careful about what she could watch. I saw this movie about a cute little witch and was like, oh, I bet my cousin can watch this. So I went and picked her up. And this was after I had really enjoyed Robin Williams had died recently, who is sort of an inspiration to me. So I went and picked said cousin up and we watched Hook, and she enjoyed watching a movie. So then later we went and watched Kiki's Delivery Service, and she got a big kick out of that. The cat was named Gigi, which that's my little brother's cat. He still has her. I really loved Kiki's, thought it was an incredible movie. I loved the music. Just the premise was great, and didn't really mess around with Ghibli movies much after that. Saw Mononoke, saw my favorite. It's not my favorite anymore. My original favorite, Howl's Moving Castle, which is one of the ones we're talking about today. I mean, Miyazaki's just the master.
I will say the second, actually, really, I didn't realize that until later. Third movie I actually watched of Studio Ghibli was actually a lesser known one, or at least one that's far less talked about, is The Cat Returns, which I'm such an animal lover, and this will come up again later on in the episode, but I'm such an animal lover, so it makes perfect sense that that's one of my favorite anime movies is The Cat Returns, because it's just so wholesome, it's so darn cute, and it's not very high stakes, but it's just a delightful movie to watch when you need a comforting movie to watch at the end of a hard day and cuddle under a blanket with.
Sure. Whereas I like the ones that are a little higher on the thing. I love just the music mostly, but I think my favorite is probably Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, which is the one we're not necessarily talking about today.
We still have to watch that one.
Yeah, but we are talking about two of my favorites, and let's go ahead and talk three.
Yeah.
So 3 we've seen together that you saw for the first time. Let's start with Totoro. I want to start each of these conversations by just getting your initial take on these movies.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, My Neighbor Totoro, to be perfectly honest, when we watched it, I wasn't really feeling it. I'm like, I don't want to lay down and watch a movie, or, and I had just gotten home from work, and Casey was really wanting to watch a movie. I'm like, I don't know, whatever. But I watched it, and I was very, very much delighted by the movie. I did not expect it to like it as much as I did. That is for sure. That goes for the case with all of these movies. Like, I did not have high expectations for whatever reason going into any of these movies, but Totoro is just such a wholesome movie, and really it's an easy watch for me too, because there's only one point in the whole movie where there is like tension or high stakes or something, and that's when the little sister goes missing. Yes, but it turns out okay in the end, which I love a good happy ending. And the cat bus, love it.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the same for me. It is a story about two girls, sort of imaginary friend / guardian. It hits like some Cat in the Hat vibes to me, but mostly it's just a fairy tale. It's just a children's story. And whereas and I know we can dig in and there's the same themes in Totoro, but compared to Miyazaki's other films, which are full of allegory and metaphor and the darkness of the world and the negative effects that humanity has upon it, Totoro is just a nice little story about two girls who are having a hard time and need a friend, and a friend shows up.
Yeah, and not to mention, at least for me, it definitely scratched that itch that I had when I first saw a Disney movie as a kid. Because you're exactly right. It's a whimsical fairy tale, and it kind of brought me a little bit back to my childhood. And it was even more fun, even though he's just now starting to get an attention span that's longer than 15 minutes. It was especially fun to watch it with our kid. And
he loved it too. And Totoro just has like this Barney feeling of being this like safe person for kids.
He's just so big and cuddly, even though he roars. I mean, our son is one of those kids that like has no fear, and whenever Totoro roared for the first time, he just went
no. You know what American cartoon has the same vibes? I'm gonna give two. One, Pete the Dragon.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, it was something in The Beast, and the Beast is like this yellow thing with 3 horns and red polka dots all over its body, and the little girl is a little girl in a yellow shirt and overalls.
Oh gosh, what's the name of that? That's gonna kill me. That was actually a TV show, I know.
Maisie and the Beast or something like that.
I'm gonna look it up, and you go ahead.
Yeah, but it just had a lot of that, and it's not a super serious movie. It's not like, I mean, it involves like, little girls. Mom.
Maggie and the Ferocious Beast.
I was so close. I was so close. I said Maisie. Close enough. But yeah, it's like, dad takes the girls out. I wonder if the movie is trying to put you in the little girl's perspective of like, you don't know immediately why they move out to the country. And if you haven't seen it, spoilers, this family, the dad moves his family out to the country, to this rural area to be closer to his wife, their mother, while she's in a sanitarium for
some unknown disease,
tuberculosis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not unknown. It's TB.
They do mention that. I forgot about that part.
Yeah, and it's that era too. Like TB was a worldwide problem. And it's why her health kind of rises and falls. TB wasn't like curable at the time.
Yeah, I mean, and there's the other part that was like, so what gets me about this movie is how childlike it is, because it's exactly as you said, it's from the perspective of children. And not once does it ever, hardly ever go to the perspective of the adults. It's all told through the perspective of a child.
And they hit that when they tell you that adults can't see Totoro.
Which is very much, like you said, Pete the Dragon.
Yeah, and you and the viewer can.
And that's all part of the magic of it. But,
yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Really, really the only part that, I'll say this. The part that made me feel most like a child, and I've said this before, but made me feel most like the child, is how helpless you feel in such a traumatic situation as when your little sister goes missing because she ran off, not listening to go bring vegetables to her mother because it'll make her feel better. And then you cannot find her. And all these adults start talking about, let's search the lake. We have to dredge the lake. And of course, what in the world does that mean? She's in the lake. What's going on? We can't find her. And that moment right there was a little bit heavy.
And they find her shoe.
They find her shoe.
No, it's not hers. That's it.
That's right. It's not hers. It's another little boy's.
But it hangs on that for a second. You find the shoe and they have to go get the next door neighbor to be like, this isn't her, or go get the older sister to be like, that's not her shoe. And they drag that moment out for 5 minutes and you're sitting there just not sure what to think. And it's terrifying.
But it's terrifying as a child because it puts you in that spot as a child again. That's what makes it so scary.
Yeah, but that moment is scarier as an adult.
That is very true.
When you know what that means.
When you know the implications of it. Exactly.
And we're also living in a darker world, I think, than when that movie came out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But let's not get into that.
Yeah, no. But, I mean, I used to see all the time, like, because I became more of a nerd, obviously, after we married. But I saw a bunch of people when we used to go into game shops and go to conventions and things. And we saw, I saw people having like a bunch of Totoro merch, and they would be almost head to toe in Totoro merch. They would have the backpack, they would have the fanny pack, they would have the hat, they would have all the pins and the whole 9 yards. And I'm thinking, what in the world why are they so infatuated with this creature? And then when I saw the movie, I understood.
Yeah.
He's just a lovable, wholesome, too good for this world creature.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Too good for this world. Moving on, I hate to transition too quickly, but we're at 32 minutes.
That's not a good segue.
It is now. So let's talk about the movie we watched most recently, as in we watched it last night.
No.
Oh, we got to go in order. Okay.
For me personally, I have to talk about this one next. I want to save one in particular for last.
Well,
but
I'm going to go let the dogs in the house while you introduce this movie.
Yes. Okay.
You're on your own.
Oh no, sink or swim. But this movie, Howl's Moving Castle, I had no interest in watching this one again for a while. That's kind of the premise of most of these movies, actually all three of these movies we're talking about, is I had no interest in watching them. Casey convinced me through one reason or another to watch these movies. And the first time I watched this movie, it was about 3 weeks before our son was born, and it was Valentine's Day. So it was a very special Valentine's Day for us. We couldn't really go out anywhere because I was so pregnant, and I had no energy to go anywhere. So he made me a home-cooked meal. We had cheesecake, and we settled in to watch Howl's Moving Castle because I was told it's kind of a romantic movie. And before then, I had seen so many forums on the internet and just scrolling through Facebook about how Howl's Moving Castle is just this amazing movie. Oh my gosh, swoon. I love Howl, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, come on. But then the movie starts. Gorgeous music, first of all. This is the movie where I love the music the most. I just play it all the time. But from the get-go, Howl's very first line, Mr. Christian Bale, says something along the lines of, "There you are, darling. Sorry to keep you waiting." Oh my gosh.
And from that moment, I questioned why we were watching this movie.
No, it's funny because I remember this so distinctly. He says that line, my eyes just widen, and the first words I say are, "Oh, I get it."
The shimmer and timbers there.
Like, oh my. But watching it again very recently, I'm able to kind of look at it more of a little bit of a deeper look into it as well. We can start kind of analyzing a little bit more of the elements of Howl's Moving Castle, which, you know, going along some of we have notes on this, but I think it was a very brilliant choice casting Christian Bale, who was less problematic at the time, as Howl.
Why is he problematic now?
Well, he was at one point. It has to do with his stint as Batman. But we're not going to get into that. I could be totally wrong about that, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
There was the whole allegations of Christian, but you have to look it up. But we can edit this part if we want. But I think it was a great choice casting Christian Bale. They also had more brilliant voice actors. Billy Crystal as Calcifer is just absolutely spot on, amazing. Probably my favorite character besides Howl. Even before Howl, Calcifer's probably my favorite. And then just the story itself. But there's a lot that could be analyzed about this movie. There's, for one thing, a World War I comparison, but there's magic involved. There's the whole part of it where it's the theme of self-perception and Sophie's curse. As someone who very much struggles with self-perception of herself, what I'm trying to say is it helps a little bit to think more kindly about yourself after watching the movie. That was one of my notes too, that mentality/self-image and physical form are linked throughout the movie, not just with the main characters, but you see that like time and time again. I want to go back just real quick. We talked about the Disney movie comparison between one. I want to make a point of doing that with each of these. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this one is obvious as Beauty and the Beast. Oh, yes, absolutely. But one note I have is this is Beauty and the Beast if the Beast and Gaston are the same person. Except Gaston is a whole lot more educated. To an extent. Wait, Gaston is more educated? At least for the Howl comparison. If we are combining the Beast and Gaston together as a character in Howl, Howl's far more educated than Gaston. There you go. You said Gaston's more educated a second ago. That's what I mean, though. Yeah, but... You're calling Howl Gaston, that's what it is. Yeah. But no, all the girls talk about him and how he's going to come steal a girl's heart. And yeah, he's got the same thing, except in this case, we like it. Cast Christian Bale as Gaston, and the hate will be gone. The only thing that makes Howl not my favorite character in this is he is such a freaking drama king. Oh my gosh. Well, I was going to say, I do want to point one other thing out. And this would really make more sense if we were talking about Nausicaa also. But in anime, a genre that is so rife with fan service and like overly sexualized characters. Yes. One thing I love about Miyazaki is that he does not sexualize his heroines. Never. If he sexualizes anyone, it's Howl of the Howl's Moving Castle. If there's any character that's walking around with a couple buttons unbuttoned that maybe shouldn't be, it's Howl. Or a little bit too loose of a towel. Yeah. I'm trying to think now if that's the case with any other. No, Howl is like the one character. Howl is the one, yeah. Maybe Hayao Miyazaki really likes Christian Bale too. Maybe he also went, oh. But yeah, no, that would be the only one quality about Howl that I just do not like as a character, because I can't stand drama. But well, the fact that he's so shallow about his looks and stuff fits with that like thing about self-perception. Yes, it still goes along with the theme of self-perception, but it's more of like you're very much overreacting here. But you could also say the same about Sophie. There's a line that she says when she first realizes that she's turned into a grandma, and it's like, oh, wait, she doesn't think highly of herself, is your clothes finally suit you. She says, well, at least your clothes finally suit you, Sophie. I've always kind of seen myself as being an old biddy. And I'm like, dang. Well, I mean, it's one thing to be an old soul, but
I was about to say she's the lady that's like, I was born in the wrong era.
you were born at the wrong age.
I would have done so much better in the 70s. What other notes did I take? We're already running up on 40 minutes, so I kind of want to move a little faster. I'm just going to go through my notes, and you can stop me if you want to make a point, and then we can do the same for you. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
I said Miyazaki loves bakeries. There's so many bakeries in his movies.
There's literally videos on the internet of like people recreating food from Ghibli movies.
Yeah. Stay tuned for bonus content because this movie would make a fantastic ballet. With the music and the story. I could see some comparisons to the Swan Princess.
A little bit.
This movie has time travel in a really weird way, and I've convinced myself that Turnip Head is meant to be her prince.
Turnip Head! Oh, I hope you'd mention Turnip Head. I love him.
And if she had not time traveled, she would have ended up with him.
Turnip Head, yep.
Hal is batching it is one of my notes. Looking at the beginning of that movie, that is just a bachelor. That is a depressed boy bachelor pad. That is he has the nice Hal. If he was in college, would have the 72-inch flat screen sitting on a cardboard box with a handful of paper plates that he's been washing.
Well, if he did the dishes, period.
Yeah. I wrote rage cleaning is really satisfying in this movie when she's cleaning the house.
Well, it goes along with, again, the whole thing about, it's a woman's touch. He needed a woman's touch in the house.
Yeah, I guess. I wrote, how's a fuckboy? Sorry, we're going to curse a little. I'm going to try not to make a point of it, but the plan to have Sophie act like Hal's mom is so Shakespeare. That feels like it's straight out of a Shakespearean comedy.
I think part of that too, why she feels like she has to act as his mom or his auntie, is a little bit like she's trying to distance herself from a love relationship like that. It's a different kind of love relationship, but not a romantic one.
The dog looks like Donald Trump.
Yup.
I'm the best dog. There's no other dogs like me.
If you have not watched Howl's Moving Castle in a hot minute, go watch the parts where the dogs are, and it's actually pretty spot on.
The sweat animation when they're climbing those stairs is disgusting.
Ew.
I wrote, Sophie has sass.
No, she had some of the best lines in that whole movie. I loved it. I loved it so much. Better than Calcifer. I loved Calcifer's delivery, but Sophie definitely was given the sassiest lines.
Also, some of the best food imagery in cinema, the bacon and eggs and the big fish in the market, and everything in that movie looks delicious, and including Hal.
Well, I was going to say something about Calcifer eating the eggshells. But sure, let's say that too.
Oh my goodness.
And then finally, our last movie.
Onto a more serious film.
I wanted to save this one for last for a reason. This is the one we really recently just watched last night. Oh my gosh. Princess Mononoke.
This movie made you cry.
It made me cry like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I don't think a Studio Ghibli movie has done that to me yet. Now, I'm a sensitive soul, but I hate crying at movies. I really do. But this movie hit me hard. This was an emotionally charged movie. We've both got several notes right here, and I'm going to try to go through it a little quick. But
so this movie came out when you were 4 and I was 5, or other way around. When you were 5 and I was 4, 1997.
No, I was 6.
Oh, okay. Then I was 5.
I'm a 91 baby.
That's right.
But, apart from the emotionally charged business of this movie, one of the first things I asked while we're 5 minutes into the movie, I see Yakul for the first time, and I look you dead in the eye. I said, "The deer lives, right?"
The dog doesn't die.
does the dog die, because I can't stand it. If I see the protagonist's animal companion and he dies, I'm turning off the movie.
And for those watching our Elden Ring stream, Torrent, the horse in Elden Ring, is straight up based off that, right?
Oh, yes.
Like,
yes.
gotta be.
I think so, at least. There's a lot of very close comparisons to it, at least. Yakul first,
Yeah.
and then Torrent.
Yakul is certainly cool. But no, one thing that I initially, one of my first thoughts of this movie is like, I've never played a ranger in D&D, but this is the best example of one I've seen in fiction, including Strider in Lord of the Rings.
I did it briefly. I did it for like a couple months stint before I was forced to replace my character.
You have this archer that's just highly versed in nature and almost in like a spiritual way and knows the land around where he lives. And I interrupted you, and I'm sorry.
No. You were adding on to what I said, actually. But it is very much like the Ranger, but like it's what everybody thinks of as the Ranger, like catch the arrow in midair and then fire it right back, or be able to call and talk to beasts at will, and just a nature person, but also the most adept person. I think adept is the right word, with a bow and arrow you could possibly think of, and just all about the nature. That's the quintessential Ranger.
Do be chopping people's heads off with flint arrowheads.
Oh my God. That part when that happened, and then he was coming across the village where a massacre was happening, and they start going for him, and his arm reacts with the curse, and he fires that arrow and straight up shoots off the guy's arms. What the fuck just happened?
Let's give a brief synopsis of the movie. So this is basically like Pocahontas, but more from John Smith's perspective. In a lot of ways, we're continuing the Disney comparisons. But you have this character who's a prince in like a far off small community that is sort of fading away because they can't sustain themselves in a modern world. But they're very like Shinto, like nature worship belief system, very traditional, very insular and isolated. In fact, no one really knows that they still exist.
It was believed that their kind had died out 500 years ago. A
demon attacks the village and is killed by Prince Yashitaka, the main character of the film. Ashitaka, sorry. And it turns out that demon was actually a corrupted god, a god of boars. And he is cursed and has to leave his village in exile.
It's a curse of hate.
Yes. And he finds his way to a town that's mining sand along a riverbed for iron ore, and learns that they are deforesting the mountain nearby, the forest. And are being kind of at conflict with
God bless you.
And are sort of in conflict with all the animals nearby, but namely a tribe of wolves who at some point adopted a little girl who became the princess of the wolf goddess, San, who is our Princess Mononoke. And the movie is them sort of meeting each other and Ashitaka trying to mediate this conflict. It ends with the like central greater deity, the great forest spirit, being beheaded and it putting a major blight on the land. This comes after a war between animals and humans. That's very devastating. The invention of the firearm is very heavily involved in this movie. They managed to return this great forest spirit his head and return the world to a sort of balanced state. And in the end, they don't necessarily end up together, with Ashitaka deciding to stay in town and help them rebuild in a better way, and San taking up leadership of the wolf tribe. But it's implied they sort of are still together. They visit each other, and they have this sort of loving relationship from both sides of a tense relationship.
I mean, the ending works for me, but there are a couple of things that I honestly, personally feel like I would have changed about the ending, but otherwise it was really, there's only one hang up for me. Well, two.
What is it? Or what are they?
Well, you gotta kind of get into the rest of our notes before I get to the ending here a little bit. But To note, this is actually our boy's third Studio Ghibli movie. He actually watched Totoro first. He watched Ponyo while I was at work at one night, and I caught the last 20 minutes of it. And yeah. And then he watched the first 20 minutes of Princess Mononoke. And then by that point, it was bedtime.
Yeah. And that was before it got scary.
Like really scary. Yeah. I did not expect this to be a little bit creepy and scary as I thought it was going to be. Like I said, I'm a sensitive person and I do not do horror movies. This had some scary parts to it.
There's a point, the scariest point in this movie to me, after the conflict between the Boars and the humans, the Boars leader being voiced by Lance Reddick.
No, Keith David. We talked about this last night.
You're right.
It's Keith David. Yeah.
So David is replacing a lot of Lance Reddick's roles, and it throws me off. But you have Keith David in this role as the new boar god from another region who leads the boars into battle. He's old and blind and not really able to do this anymore. You get the sense, sort of a world-weary king of these boars. They lose badly and the boars come back, but you notice their eyes are hollow, and it's because they've been skinned, and it's hunters wearing the boar skins as disguises, and it is creepy.
Especially because their legs are missing and they're just crawling along the earth.
Yes.
Oh God.
And they're just shades, and it's terrifying.
And they make almost no sound crawling along the ground. Oh my God. That was a lot for me. Oh wow.
The fact that the actions of bad, sorry, I interrupted you again.
No, you please go ahead.
The fact that the actions of bad people come off as creepy and unsettling and sort of like macabrely mystic. Like it feels like magic what they're doing with those boar skins in an evil way.
Oh yeah, it very much feels like black magic-esque.
Yeah.
But there were parts of this movie also that I've said several times, I'm a sensitive soul. And I said earlier in the episode that I do not like animal violence in the least. There were parts of this movie I had to just look away and just listen. And it was tough for me to watch some of the third act of this movie. And then we see the shades of the boars. That was, oh my God. That was a lot.
And the senile old general thinking his people are back. It's sad. It's sad.
Oh my God. It's so haunting.
Yeah.
That would probably be the way I would describe this movie, is just haunting, but in such a beautifully done way.
But then you also have beautiful moments. Like, as much as the bad guys are the bad guys, they make a point that Irontown is like going around and offering women in brothels a new lease on life.
Oh, I loved that part. I loved that part. Absolutely.
And the gender gap is definitely a little narrower out here on the frontier.
To point out the whole women difference with the men, one of the best lines to me is like, respect? Since when? We weren't given any respect since the day we were born. And I'm like, fuck yes for that.
I like, you thought we'd be weak because the men weren't around. Pow! I
mean, I freaking love that so much. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, is that the women were, and I mean, they talked about it like Lady Eboshi spoils the women here, and I'm like, you call that spoiled? That's equality, or just a reverse there.
And you have that one woman whose husband is like a lovable idiot, and a real reversal of traits.
And she just keeps saying, don't ask me why I love this lovable idiot.
I thought you were saying that about me.
No, I love you. But back to the whole point of, They absolutely have their own ambitions. The Irontown, they have their own ambitions with this whole movie. They want to be able to create a better life for their families, for their village. There's some amount of, oh gosh, what's the word for it?
There's something admirable
yes,
the fierce independence, the drive.
They're just wanting to make a good future for themselves. But it's industrialization versus nature. And in this case, industrialization is framed as a straight up poison to nature.
They're making a world for themselves at the cost of the world that existed before.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, it comes across as, I think, misplaced aggression.
Hence Lady Eboshi.
Also ties into my love of Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yes.
I think Miyazaki and Tolkien both share this love of like agrarian rural lifestyle existing in symbiosis with the land. Whereas the idea of industrialization, Lady Eboshi's town feels like nice Isengard. Like she feels like nice Saruman in a lot of ways.
I know some people are probably going to feel very differently about this, but I could not stand Eboshi from beginning to
terrible.
end. She's absolutely terrible. She should not have been forgiven and immediately accepted back as the leader. Like, do the townspeople not, like, tell me if I'm wrong. Do they not find out?
Hold on. I'm going to challenge you with something right here. If you think that, then almost none of Naruto should have gone the way it did.
I don't know. Yeah, you got a point there.
All he did was talk no jutsu her.
But I mean, the whole you answered this question for me. Okay. Did the townspeople not find out that Lady Eboshi was going to leave them for dead?
They did.
And they still took her back.
They don't believe it.
That's fucking messed up.
Yeah, they're told they don't believe it.
That is so fucking messed up.
That she lets her ambition get ahead of herself. If we're sticking with the Pocahontas reference, she's guy in the purple suit.
Radcliffe,
that's right. I thought Radigan, but that's a different Disney movie.
Different one.
Though they do look kind of similar.
In a way.
But yeah, she's out here dig. And yeah, it's bad.
And I mean, like you said, there's things that are admirable about her. Like she puts the women in charge and, she brought them out of the cities from the brothels and gave them honest work and
gives home to a cast of people that wouldn't be accepted by society due to disease.
She accepts outcasts and treats them fairly. Yes, there's admirable things about her, but she still left them for dead.
And you know what? I think what it is she's a more palatable version of Yubaba from Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Who we don't like, but she's doing the exact same thing.
There's redeeming qualities about her.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that.
Yeah. Yubaba lets anyone have a job if they ask. She has a binding vow. I didn't mean for that to be a JJK reference, but there it is. She has a binding vow that anyone who asks for work will receive it. She accepts anyone into the bathhouse as long as they're willing to work. But we don't like her. Because she's bad.
Because she's greedy and she's evil and it's her way or the highway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. This is a different type of spin on Yubaba's character.
That's actually, man, every once in a while I think something and I thought of that off the top of my head. And I'm like, damn, Casey, that's smart. Not to pat my back too much, but it's more like, damn, Casey, Miyazaki's smart. He tricked me into liking one person and not liking another when they're the same person.
Well, I mean, you also had a note written down here that you thought of last night that you were like, that's kind of true. Where it says here, heroes wear blue.
Oh, yes. And there's some color psychology to that blue invokes sympathy. But I'm specifically thinking of characters that are non-violent heroes, which frankly are most of Miyazaki's heroes. If we look at, I'm going to just two in particular, Ashitaka and Nausicaa from Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. They both wear like blue jerkins with long sleeves and they're clad in blue. And I don't know. I just wonder how intentional that is that heroes wear blue in Miyazaki.
Well, Kiki does not wear blue.
Kiki does not. The mom does. The owner of the bakery does.
No, she doesn't. She wears a green and khaki apron.
No, you're right. Sophie does.
Sophie does. The girl from The Cat Returns wears a blue school dress.
Ooh, I haven't seen that in a minute. I forgot that.
At the very beginning, and Anne Hathaway plays her, which I thought was brilliant. Hardly any people knew that Anne Hathaway. Yes. She voiced the character in The Cat Returns before she was cast as Catwoman.
So she and Hal should get together in the Ghibli verse.
Oh, goodness.
The boy from the boy.
Chihiro from Spirited Away does not wear blue.
Pink.
But, what's the name of the dragon from Spirited Away? He does wear blue.
It's right there. We're both Googling furiously right now. It's like Chihiro.
No, Chihiro's the name of the girl. What is the name of the dragon? Haku,
that's right. Does he?
Yes.
I thought he wears white. Like
he
with
does
blue,
wear mostly white, but he wears blue shorts.
Okay. But I don't know if that quite is the same, but I'll buy it.
What's interesting, though, is that Yubaba also wears blue.
Oh, I don't like that. That breaks my theory because she sucks.
But maybe it's trying to get you to sort of like her in a way, even though she's a terrible character.
I don't know. Maybe.
There is some color philosophy to that, though. You're not wrong.
It invokes sympathy. But also, frankly, Miyazaki's heroes that we're supposed to like are pretty, too.
Except for Sophie.
Yeah, but Sophie's also still pretty.
Yes,
like, really.
But she doesn't see herself as so.
Yeah. Even as an old lady, she's like conventionally attractive for a woman that age.
Also, Chihiro and Kiki are children.
Yeah. Especially when you combine the fact that Sophie looks the way she does as an old woman, and we have the Witch of the Wastes next to her.
Oh, yeah. That's very
See
true.
what I'm saying?
That's very true.
Like, you're thinking that beauty and youth are the same thing, and I think Miyazaki would say tisk
No,
tisk.
I'm saying we shouldn't be looking at, even though we call our son beautiful and handsome all the time, we shouldn't be thinking about children in that respect.
Sure.
In my personal opinion.
I'm talking about old people.
Okay, sure. But I mean, there is a truth to that. But I mean, personally, I think the whole like blue color theory kind of goes along with this. And Lady Eboshi does wear a blue. It's a darker blue though.
Maybe.
Kind of goes along with that. But there's two more points I want to at least cover with Princess Mononoke. Is one of the scenes, actually there's two big scenes that made me cry. And they are almost back to back. One is Mama Wolf, Moro is her name?
Moro, yes.
Moro. Oh my gosh. Where she's on death's door and she says, I was saving the last of my strength to bite off that woman's head, but I suppose I have to use it to save my daughter. And she goes to the corrupted boar god and proclaims, give me back my daughter, and sacrifices herself for that. And as a mom, that really hits me hard because if anybody's out there listening to this as a mom, you know that we would do anything for our babies, no matter how old or how young they are. And it just, that got me. But then the part that really, really got me to tear up, and I still don't know why, is when the forest god, the forest spirit, has its head brought back and it falls over into Irontown and it wipes the slate clean. Everything gets blown away. The flags, the weapons, most of the wood from that made up the village, everything gets swept away in a huge gust of wind. And it's just silence. And I know I mentioned this to you earlier today, but Princess Mononoke, I have to applaud because it's one of the movies I believe makes the greatest use of dramatic silence in the movie. Not everything had to have a score behind it. Not everything had to have any background noise. And those are the parts that hit the heaviest. There was absolutely nothing, and pause for dramatic effect really, really worked for this.
There was something I noted, something very similar, which is just that Ghibli films do a good job of a thing that I think a lot of movies don't do very well anymore, which is to show, don't tell. That a lot of movies nowadays rely so much on like direct exposition, characters telling us how the world works. And in general, I think Miyazaki's films do a great job of letting us just see it. And especially Howl's. Howl's doesn't explain. And I think that's part of maybe Miyazaki's sort of dour countenance himself. I don't know. Anyone listening to this, if you don't know, look up some stuff about Miyazaki. He's a sad boy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There's one thing he says. There's a quote from him that's like to the effect of, cinema's meaningless and does nothing. I don't know why I want to make another movie, but I do. Or just like someone asks him, like, what's the point of this movie? And he's like, there is no point to this movie. There's no point to anything.
Would you say he's a bit of a masochist just to keep continuing to write movies?
Masochist means a different thing.
Okay. We can edit that part out.
No, I'm keeping it.
Oh, no.
He's definitely a cynic.
Okay. Probably more of what I mean, but like, it's more of like he continues to do it despite the detriment to himself is mostly what I mean.
But he definitely has a mentality in his movies of, I assume that if you were to ask him, how does this work? What does this mean? He'd be like, figure it out.
Yeah, he leaves it to the viewer's discretion.
Yeah. All right, we're at an hour and 7 minutes.
I want to close with one last question, and I know I mentioned this last night, and it still bothers me, is why in the world did Princess Mononoke not get an Oscar or at least a nomination of it? And what did you tell me?
I don't think animation was eligible for awards at that time.
It wasn't. I Googled it after, and I remember coming to you late in the night, almost after we went to bed, and I Googled it, like, why didn't it get at least a nomination? And it's true. There was no category for animation at the time because it wasn't respected as it is now as an art form. But also at the time, Japan had submitted it for Best Foreign Language Film, and it was not even considered for the final nominees.
I will say it's worth noting that, and this is something I recently saw a podcast episode of Midnight Local, which is a show that I really, if you listen to this, we're not affiliated or sponsored by Midnight Local, but check it out. It's a great show from the guy behind the YouTube show, How to Drink. But they got to talking about how like Oscars is like a political thing and you have to have a budget and campaign to win an Oscar. It's not something that just happens because your movie's good. You have to spend some money schmoozing and boozing, and that's probably hard from across the Pacific Ocean.
Well,
especially at the time.
It was back then.
Especially in 1997.
But now you put the name Hayao Miyazaki behind anything and money talks, for sure.
Yeah, especially, and that's probably partially, like, we probably know Miyazaki the way we do because Disney owns the distribution rights for North America.
Oh, absolutely. But, I mean, he had to get his foot in the door somehow.
I don't know if I've told you one of my favorite, like, Disney Miyazaki things. One, everything I know says that Miyazaki does not like Disney, that he's not necessarily happy about that relationship.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Or at least wasn't. Maybe that's not true anymore. But I don't remember the exact scenario, so I'm going to be a little wrong. But folks, you can go Google this and get the exact information. For one of his films, and I think it was Spirited Away, I'm not sure. I could be very wrong on which movie it was. There was a thing of he was very adamant that Disney not cut any major lines. Disney wanted to and sent him a letter about the things they wanted to cut. And he had hand forged a katana with the words "no cuts" etched into the blade and had it sent to the head of Disney Distribution.
Damn! if that's not cutthroat, then I don't know what is.
I might have to cut that joke. No. And I think that's maybe that's our sign off. I was joking, like, what are we going to do for our sign off thing?
We got to end it with a pun or a joke.
I was like, there's a lot of things where like couples like end on a dirty pickup line, but I think we'll stick with our relationship is more, I tell a stupid joke.
And half the time I laugh, or at least pretend to laugh.
You love it.
I do.
And we love you, dear listeners. So tune in next time. We're going to continue doing this. This episode is being recorded way before we start releasing them in about a month. But we're going to keep recording. We're going to have a good time. We're going to tell you all about the cool things we're up to. And just, watch some movies, play some games, and have some fun. If you have an idea for something you would like us to try for an episode, keep it friendly. Then we'll look into it. We might do it. We're not wealthy, so it depends on how much it costs.
Yeah, we can't go to Disney World overnight or something like that. But
and it's got to be within the terms of service of Twitch, YouTube, and our podcast platforms. But otherwise, we'll look into it. Anyways, have a great night. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
If I like you, if I like you, and you like me, if I like you, and you like me, if I like you, and you like me, and you like me, and you like me, if I like you, and you like me, if I like you, and you like me, if I like you. If I like you, if I like you, you like me, then why we playing cat and mouse like hide and seek? Living in a day and age where it's simple to be and love a half villain, so we blast mediocrity. It's a shock to me. You remember the Odyssey? One man would spend 20 years fighting at war and sea just to make it back home to his love, Penelope. The type of love I want, the type that gains immortality. I want someone proud of me, and I want to be proud to be the reason someone wakes up and smiles. Undoubtedly, it's so wild to me. Just think about how wild it'd be if I like you and you like me, if I like you and you like me, if I like you, if I like you, if I like